As we start the conversation, welcome everybody again. My name is Farida Sedoc. I'll be interviewing Lakwena Maciver today, the amazing artist invited by Hiphophuis. I don't know if there's people today who were here yesterday. Put your hands up. Yeah, for the opening, so you've already seen the work. The jump paintings, I'll do a little introduction about the jump paintings. It's a tribute to the most inspiring basketball players of the past and present, including Shaquille O'Neal, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant. In these abstract portraits, Lakwena uses the layout of a basketball court as a canvas, on which she shows the athletes through a kaleidoscopic patterns and neon colors. She takes the physical characteristics of the basketball players as a starting point. Each painting is the same height as the player. Lakwena's work is characterized by strong graphic imagery with a profound message. I would like to welcome you to this special Powertalk at Kunsthal for the Staying Power exhibition that is a collaboration with the Hiphophuis. It's a concept created by Aguna Vermeulen, the director of the Hiphophuis, where we invite community leaders with a focus on creatives of color from the Netherlands to come together with a guest who shares their knowledge and expertise. We discuss their work in relation to these important power dynamics. We are very excited to have you as a guest today, and thank you for being here. Lakwena is an artist from the UK of British and Ugandan heritage. Her work consists of large murals, panel paintings, textile works, and installations. She uses imagery from the advertising world and replaces commercial slogans with meditative affirmations in her work. In doing so, Lakwena explores and subverts ideas related to decolonialism, redemption, escapism, spirituality, and Afrofuturism. Her murals can be found in Los Angeles, London, and Dubai, among others, and her work has also been shown in Tate Britain, Somerset House, and South Bank Centre in London. This exhibition, Staying Power, Hiphophuis invites, today, Lakwena, marks the 20th anniversary of Hiphophuis and the 30th anniversary of the Kunsthal. Drawing on previous collaborations, such as Street Dreams, they wanted to work together again and Lakwena's artwork. And the links to hip-hop culture seems to be the perfect fit. Today we want to think about the power dynamics in the art world, related to spirituality, family, creativity, and having a migrant background. As both Lakwena and I are artists, we see this as an opportunity to have dialogue and learn from each other. And you, the audience, as we will have time for questions at the end. So let's get started. Again, welcome, and we're gonna have a talk. But,
hi everyone.
But you're not like this silent entity. If you have a question, you want to share something, you're welcome to share it. We have these mics only, so let's wait until the conversation is done, and then we'll give you the opportunity to ask something. But hi, Lakwena.
Hi everyone. Thanks so much for coming to listen to us chat. I really hope that we have a conversation all together.
First question is, why basketball?
Okay, so yeah, this is a really big question. It's a long story, basically. So in, I think it was, I forget the date sometimes, in about 2018 or 2017, I painted a juvenile detention center in Arkansas. It's this recreational area. So it's for young people. It's like a prison for young people. And we painted this really dull concrete recreational area. And there was a basketball court in there. So I painted that. And then about 2 years later, I was invited by the same curator to make artwork for 2 basketball courts, again in Arkansas. And this was around, I think this was during lockdown or somehow in that period. And it was in a predominantly black neighborhood called Pine Bluff. And so I wanted to make something that somehow almost kind of would exist in solidarity with them and what they were going through, all of the things that were happening at that time in America. And obviously then around the world, those kind of that ripple effect. So I ended up making this artwork that was called, I'll Bring You Flowers. And it was called I'll Bring You Flowers. This is like a little detour, because at the time, there was this senator called Senator Flowers who had done this rant, like she'd got really upset on, and it had gone viral, where she was a senator, she was in court, and she'd been ranting about stand your ground laws, like gun laws in America. And I was just really inspired by her, this black woman senator, and she was really speaking about kind of her sons and I guess black men in general, and wanting to make laws that were going to protect them. And so, yeah, I made the piece. It was called I'll Bring You Flowers, and it was kind of trying to honor her, but subtly, because you can't always be that explicit about when there are political messages in your work. And anyway, so I did that, and that is what got me thinking about basketball, because I had to start researching it and thinking about it as a game, and thinking about kind of all the connotations of basketball, all of the different layers of meaning in it, all of the ways that people connect with it. So that's what got me thinking about basketball.
And okay, you came back, and how just as an artist to another artist, did you create the work while being there, or
No.
or after it?
No, so I stayed here because of lockdown and things. I couldn't go there.
Sorry, heel even. It throws me off a little bit. But it's fine. Maar ga je dit de hele uur? Oh, okay, cool. okay, cool. I'm sorry. Yeah, specifically these works are made in 2022.
Yeah, these works are all made in 2022. One might be 2021. But yeah, so these were made, this was a series of works made after that, kind of inspired by that journey that I'd been on, where I'd got into this world of basketball, and I was like, why don't I make some more paintings about this in the studio? And so that's what all of these are. And they're kind of, I did a lot of research into the game, different players, the history of the game, some of the political elements of the game, and that's kind of where these came from.
And could you elaborate on the political elements of the game?
Yeah, I guess it's undeniably, black men have dominated basketball and shaped the game, African Americans. And so there's that element of it, things like the slam dunk, the fact that it was banned for a period of time. I think it was 10 years maybe it was banned for. And all of the kind of well, it's just interesting that it was banned. It was such an incredible move, and now it's like an iconic part of the game, but it was banned. Why was it banned? So things like that were quite interesting. And just wanting to make work that was celebratory and joyful and kind of honouring in a way of this community of players who've done incredible things, these legends who, started in the playground and managed to take this onto the world stage.
And can you tell us a little bit about your education, about your experience in becoming the artist you are now?
Yeah, so in terms of education relevant to this, I studied graphic design, and it was a very conceptual way of kind of approaching it. So it was all trying to think about different ways to communicate, not necessarily just designing like a book cover or designing an album cover. It was all about, well, you could communicate in any way. You could make a sculpture that could communicate. So it was very conceptual, and I ended up making huge paintings, kind of bigger than this. I'd just like lay them out in tiles. I didn't have a lot of space at the time, so I'd lay them out on tiles on my mum's living room floor, and that's what I ended up making, these huge paintings. Obviously, I graduated, and it was like people don't really need big paintings, but they need logos, flyers, music flyers. So then I ended up doing that again. But still kind of working away at that, trying to kind of create, I guess, a visual language that was my own. Then in 2013, I was invited to Miami to paint this huge mural. And that's kind of what opened up this big door for me into public murals and being given those opportunities. So that's kind of the trajectory and how I ended up here.
Who or what inspired you to actually become an artist? Have you always known you were an artist as a little girl? Yeah.
So basically, when I was a kid, I could draw well. So I was like, that doesn't necessarily mean you can be an artist, but it helps, doesn't it? So, but I didn't want to be an artist because I think it was probably my dad who was always very conscious of money, and I knew that artists couldn't really make much money. It wasn't necessarily like a viable job. So I didn't want to be an artist. I wanted to be like an accountant or something to make money. But then things changed as I got older. I think I became disillusioned with that system. I think somehow I realized that money wouldn't necessarily make you happy. And there's a lot of stuff associated with that. Kind of, I guess class and like elitism, that kind of mentality that comes from that kind of money-chasing mentality. And I actually decided I wasn't going to play along with that. So I was going to reject that. So I decided, okay, I'm not going to bother being an accountant because I don't really want to be, but that was just to make money. So I ended up studying graphic design because I realized that that's kind of what I was interested in. I was interested in making images. I was interested in shaping culture, I guess, to an extent. And to me, graphic design was a way of doing that and getting paid, like, kind of on a very basic level. So that's why I did it.
And your parents were enthusiastic about it as you were like, hey, I'm going to study graphic design? Because mostly from my background, it's that if you're going to choose a creative path, it's not per se motivated to go that route if you're able to study. So were they like, yeah, go?
Well, so I've got a British mum. My dad was Ugandan. My dad was, stereotypically African. Wanted me to maybe be an architect, or if not an architect, if I had to study art, maybe like an art teacher. So anything that was more along that side of things. But I think he kind of, our relationship wasn't amazing, and I kind of just said I was going to do what I wanted to do, so I ended up doing this. And by the time, I think interesting, and we're going to talk about brands later, aren't we? But actually, in starting to work with people like brands that he recognized, he then became quite proud of what I was doing, because in his mind, that was like, okay, you've kind of achieved, some names that he respected, that kind of association, which is what he cared about. So yeah, like it worked out, but it definitely wasn't something that he had encouraged.
And your practice today, let's talk about your practice today. How does it look like? You live in London, you have a studio, you have a family. How does a day in your life looks?
People often ask that, a day in my life. Generally, it kind of depends. I'd share things with my husband. I've got 2 little boys, so we'll kind of split days, as to whether I'm taking them to school or he is. And once that's sorted, then I'm in the studio, and there's a lot of admin, right? Like there is for almost everyone. And it kind of depends what project I'm working on. Right now I'm preparing for another show in November. So sometimes I'll be alone in the studio, sometimes I'll be there with assistants who are helping me. When I'm alone, that's the time when I can really think and like put on my music, daydream, kind of write, and come up with ideas and work out what I'm trying to say. It's different ways it looks.
And do you have like a system or rules, as in how many commissions you do in a year, or are you reactive, as in you get a assignment or a question for a commission for a job? How do you do it? Do you have a team big enough to do it? Is the team it's a lot of questions, but is the team there every day? Do you hire people per project? How do you work?
Project by project. It's all quite reactive, I'd say. Like I've never had like a 5-year plan or anything like that. Now I'm at a stage where I'm picking and choosing more what I want to do. And, if I don't want to do it, I just won't do it. I've got a bit more power in that now, which is nice. But I don't really have any systems. The team isn't that big. I've only just started to grow a team.
How big is the team?
So I've got like maybe 4 painters who come in now, like not every day, but like kind of dependent. And again, dependent on the project that I've got going on. I've got 1 assistant who works with me the whole time. I've got a digital art worker. So I've got I'm growing the team. Because especially with the kids, it's like the only way I've managed to make all of this work is having that team. Yeah. Otherwise, I just couldn't do it. Yeah. And it's great because when I had my first kid, that was like 6-7 years ago, I would have liked to be in this position now, but I wasn't, So people were like, oh, can't you just, get someone to do it for you or get someone to help you? And I was like, I don't know how to do that, because people assume that you've got this team or you've got these systems in place. In a way, I have got a bit of a system now, but it's not like a rigid system, more of a system of how I approach work, how I make work. Do you see what I mean? Depending on whether it's with a brand or whether it's for a show.
And that is?
What that is, so I have, the assistants are part of my process now. In terms of I can make a drawing and I can work with assistants to make it happen, to make the painting. So these were all painted with assistants. So that's part of my system now.
But do you mean they have a say in what?
No, it's just that I will tell them I want yellow here, I want green here. Do you see what I mean? And then I'll paint as well, but like collaboratively paint. Yeah. But so that's my system now, is that I've got a process whereby I'm not having to paint every single bit. So it just makes it means that I can do more with not very much time.
But then money also, of course, plays a role.
Yeah.
As you said, like 7 years ago, you weren't in the position to do that.
No.
Was that mainly financial then?
No, it wasn't so much financial. It's like know-how. Like, because I've never run a team. I've never managed anything. I've not even managed like a restaurant or a retail shop. I've worked in retail, but I've never been a manager. So a lot of this stuff, having to learn all of this stuff and not knowing how to do it, but just having to figure it out. Learning how to grow, basically, from one person who's doing everything to having a team who I direct. Yeah. And I'm still, I'd say, right at the beginning, but I've made some progress.
And you also have a gallerist, so that's like also a kind of a team on its
Yeah,
own.
it is, yeah.
Could have, because these are the we're talking about the staying power, power talks, power dynamics. I'm very interested in how you decide which brand you do work with or not. How do you feel about working with brands in general? Yeah, how do you decide?
So, yeah, so that would be like, so I now have a gallerist and a manager, like probably breaking down my thing here. The
Let's
manager,
talk money, yeah?
yeah. So the manager will help me with running the more commercial stuff, which is, it's all commercial to an extent, but things like working with brands.
But the manager is your manager, but
He helps me manage the work.
is it from the gallery,
No,
or is that's just
separate.
your
He's
manager?
separate
So
person.
you appointed the manager.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So he works with me and helps me to decide what to do, what not to do, how much to charge, stuff that I don't know anything about. Yeah. And yeah, so now in terms of who I work with, it's, well, do I like the sound of the project? Do I like the brand? Do I like what they stand for? Do I like, I guess, the brand association, you know? And how much are they paying me? Because I'm only doing it because I'm getting paid. Yeah.
Because to me, your work is, in a way, also very, personal, empowering, motivating, and at this, let's say, superficial level, when I think about brands, I think about an entity that wants to sell stuff, and working together with a brand. Do you believe their motivation to work with you as an artist? And do you believe that you have to engage in that, like, as in, you have a brand and they're like, yeah, we want to work with you because we think you're a great artist.
Do I believe them? Like,
yeah, like, or are you from the gate pretty, like, business, like, yeah, you just want to make money?
I think I'm kind of realistic. Brands, I guess they create stories about caring because they want to connect with people, which makes sense. And I realize that they want to work with me because I can help them tell that story. I also realize that I've got a story to tell with my own work. But then I also realize that I've got bills to pay, and they've got money. So if I can help them tell their story where it aligns with my story, and they're going to pay me money, then I'm happy to do that. If I didn't need money, interestingly, if I didn't need money, I probably would still work with brands. Because there's two things that I'm getting from working with a brand. One, I'm getting money, but the other thing I'm getting is a way to reach people. Because the reality is that in our society, in our culture, most of the imagery that people see, is not actually paintings in galleries or paintings in museums. Most of the images that they see are on clothing from brands, they're logos of brands, they're in advertising. So I see that as an opportunity to connect with people. In an ideal world, I guess, brands are kind of nice. I guess back in the day you'd have a coat of arms, wouldn't you? In the West, in Europe, there would be a coat of arms as opposed to a Nike tick, and you would align yourself with a particular coat of arms that you would be in service to. I don't know much about the history, but you know what I mean? Like logos are kind of an extension of that tradition. So I think, I don't think people like to align themselves with things, don't they? Which is why people will, you know, get a Nike tick shaved into the back of their heads, for instance, which is quite a weird thing to do when you think about it, like it's a brand. But it's become so much a part of our visual culture and our shared identity that, well, if you engage with it, that you would do that. So I think there's something really powerful about that. And I think if I can tell my story and connect with people in a way where they will be open to what I have to say, because I'm associated with a brand like Nike, then I think that's of benefit to me, you know. That gives me access to something or someone. So yeah, they're two things.
And if we're thinking about galleries of in the art world, how do you navigate that world? Do you have this? You have one gallerist, or do you have more? Do you have an ambition to stay in? Do you have a plan, let's say, or?
Well, yeah, I don't really have a plan. Like I said, I don't really have 5-year plans. I'm just kind of, you know, take the opportunities that come to me and work my hardest, you know, to get things done. I work with one gallery at the moment, a really great gallery. I don't know much about this world, you know. I don't know that anyone does that first, to be honest. Even if you studied fine art, you're still not really sure how the actual commercial side of things goes. But yeah, I'm just figuring out as I go along, trying to do everything with integrity myself, trying to be honest and transparent, and trying to work with people who are honest and transparent, which is sometimes hard to find, to be honest. But that's the way that I try to do things.
And NFT world, are you into that, or?
I'm open to it because it's just like another form of technology, isn't it? Just like books at one point were like this new type of technology that people were kind of scared of and unsure about. NFTs are just a new kind of form of technology. So yeah, I'm open to that. I haven't done anything yet. I'm not in a hurry or a race. But yeah, I'm open to that. Because it's similar to the thing of working with brands. I think my vision for my work, I don't have a plan, but my general vision is that it would be something that is accessible to people, but is also in places of power. So I guess in a way this is a place of power in terms of an institution has a level of respect given to it. And I would love my work moving forward. You never know what's going to happen, but moving forward, I'd love my work to be respected in places of power, but also to be respected by or seen by people who don't get access to those places for whatever reason. Yeah, because I don't want to only exist in this space where most people don't come and don't feel comfortable, and there are a lot of kind of unwritten rules and kind of formalities. Yeah, I want to make work that's accessible, basically.
Yeah. So in that sense, you're covering both sides, as in the murals are, let's say, in a place of power in the streets, and accessible to everyone, but you're also at the other end in a white cube space, gallery, and museums. And if we backtrack a little bit, also because you're a mom, you're a daughter, you're a partner. It's a lot of roles, let's say. The artist. I would like to ask Lakwena, the woman, the person. What do you listen to? What kind of music do you listen to? Do you find time besides all these roles, to just do you, or besides of doing you in those roles? But
I mean,
yeah, what do
there's-
you like to do in your, let's say, free time? Huh?
I
'Cause-
don't have a lot of free time, to be
exactly.
honest. That's the reality. But I think I realized that this season of my life, I just don't have a lot of free time. I'm either working or I'm looking after the kids. That's kind of it. My work obviously gives me a lot of space to express myself, so I'm grateful for that. And I think even in that, there's always a struggle between achieving goals and meeting deadlines and actually just saying what you want to say. But yeah, this part of my life, I don't really have time for hobbies. I would like that, but it's not this season. I've chosen to have kids and to work. I mean, I have to work, but I've chosen to do both, and I'm grateful to have that option. So the compromise is that I just don't have a lot of free time, and my life isn't exactly my own in a weird way for this period, which is, in the grand scheme of things, is not the biggest period of my life. If I'm alive for maybe 70 years, who knows? Then this is maybe 15 years of my life given to having kids and working,
And how does hip hop come into the work?
That's interesting. I think what I love about hip hop is this sense that there's kind of a freedom, and there's a lack of fear about respecting the canon, I guess, like again, the formalities or the traditions of what has come before. There's a spirit of saying, well, and there's also a spirit of saying, well, look what's in my hand, look what I've got, I'm going to work with that. And maybe I'm going to take a bit from there, and I'm going to take a bit from there. So that kind of idea of sampling, that concept, I think is really interesting and really powerful. I think that's probably where the idea of hip-hop comes into the work. I know one of the most exciting things when I was talking about working together with Hip Hop House was that Emery Douglas had worked with you guys before. And I was really inspired by that because he's a massive inspiration to me. And whenever I look at his work, that's what I'm reminded of, is that sense of working with what you got, even if what you got isn't that much. Do you see what I mean? Hip-hop came out of poor African-American communities, economically poor, let's say, but maybe culturally rich. And what they have done has changed the world, shaped a whole generation culturally. So I think that idea, I'm inspired by that, to be like, well, look at what I've got. I know there's things I haven't got, things that are missing, but what can I do with this? It doesn't have to be like what everyone else is doing, but it can be amazing and it can be great, just using what I've got. So that's kind of, I think, something that inspires me.
And language is a big part of your work, or it seems to be a big part of your work. Do you write also?
Yeah, I do. A lot of most of my work starts with writing. So yeah, words are really important. I think words are really powerful. They're so direct, but then they're not necessarily direct. They can be, layered. In a way, my work is very much about not actually shouting at people, but saying things that could be interpreted in different ways. So it's kind of open. But yeah, I always start the work with words. Otherwise, I kind of can't start.
Yeah. And then the color scheme, where does it begin and or stop?
What do you mean?
Yeah, because when I look at the work, I see lots of color, but I also see conscious decisions of which colors and tones. And so do you have this set range of colors you work with within a series, I guess? Yeah.
I don't, to be honest, and I kind of should, so maybe that'll come, but I'm not that efficient. I think, do you know Okuda art, the artist, Okuda? You know him? He makes these big pandas. He's a street artist. I think he has a very specific color palette. Lots of colors, but a very specific palette. And I think that's very efficient. But I'm not that efficient yet. Maybe I'll become more efficient. It's a good way of working.
Well,
I'm
it looks efficient. It looks
Yeah.
that you are
there's,
that
there's
efficient.
some efficiency, but things like that, it's like, really, why am I using this slightly lighter fluorescent pink here and a slightly darker fluorescent pink there,
Yeah.
when it would save time and energy to just use the one? But it's just that I'm not that efficient yet. It's a bit more
Organic.
It's a bit more organic. And with color, I'm definitely organic. Like, it's about what I feel. I don't have any like specific rules, but I do have a couple of feelings and things. Like in this painting, Kevin over here, the one with the two hands, you'll see like there's a muted lilac on the far right strip, and then there's a mint, well, kind of, it's got some fluorescent in it, fluorescent minty green. And the reason that I'll put those two together is because the fluorescent green, being next to a dull color, it makes the fluorescent pop more. So it's all to do with like relativity, I guess. Mm-hmm. Red and green on this painting, Sweetwater, over here. Do you know Joseph Albers? He did a lot of, the artist, he did a lot of like color theory. Mm-hmm. And he spoke about vibrating colors, where you'd have two colors opposite sides of the spectrum, the color spectrum. When you put them next together, they'd vibrate, even if they weren't fluorescent. So there's a couple of things like that I think about sometimes with the work. It's just playful. It's just kind of like, it's almost like visual magic. It's kind of, it's what makes things striking. The same with like a red and a dull lilac here. So I like dull colors contrasted with really synthetic ones, because it's just the extremity of that I really like playing with.
And the hands of God, let's say, how did you decide to incorporate the hands?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I can't remember the first project that I did, a painting called This Will Be a Safe Space in 2019 maybe. And there were these two hands coming into it. I think hands have always interested me. They're right there. They're what I use to make my work. There's a lot that can be said with them. I guess there's something I'm starting to use in kind of this. Is it kind of like a motif that's starting to repeat in my work? And I just, it's almost like another letter.
Yeah.
And I like that kind of spiritual connotation to it. I feel like there's a mythical feeling to it. So that's where the hands are coming in.
Yeah. It makes me think of is it Michelangelo?
Yeah, that was kind of a reference, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But do you then dive into that work and go into your own?
That's part of it. Yeah, that's definitely part of what I'm saying. These pieces are about, I speak about a connection between above and below. Yes. The fact that basketball is played vertically, it is played horizontally as well, but football is very much like this. Mm-hmm. Basketball, there's a lot of vertical movement. Mm-hmm. So that's something I was interested in kind of exploring.
And then I would like for you all to ask your questions. Izzy, what's your question? How do you feel about ownership?
So yeah, ownership of my work is really important. I guess that's why I work with a manager in terms with the brands, and there are always contracts in place with brands. One important tip I learned very early on was never sign away your copyright to your work. It's just like a basic rule, and you'll see in a contract whenever someone sends you one, they may want to, but that's kind of like it's game over for you. Well, it's not game over. It just means that you can't then use that work for any other purpose. So, yeah, that's helpful. Working with people who do know better than me and who I trust. In terms of with a gallery, I trust the gallery who I work with. Ownership, I mean, the work is still mine. unless it's sold, and then it's not mine anymore. But the actual image is still copyrighted to me. I think, I don't know how that works, but it seems, as far as I know, it's yours unless you've signed it away, you know, as the creator. So if I wanted, I could now do something. If I did sell this painting, I could still do something with the actual image, do it again. Do you see what I mean? I'm not gonna make another painting. No, well, they could privately, but I don't think they're supposed to print it and then sell it. But I mean, it's not something that really comes up, because if they were to do that, it wouldn't be worth that much. I don't know. But yeah.
They have a system for that in galleries. If you have like editions, so if you have like a 10-piece edition, then you can only sell 10 pieces. And then
Yeah,
you
definitely.
cannot sell it or reprint it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So one of one, even the person who buys it, they won't be able to.
No, I mean, they could physically copy that, but they couldn't technically sell it to anyone. But yeah, it is within my rights to take this image and use it for some other purpose. I haven't signed away that right. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a conversation on its own, I think, because I find it interesting, ownership, coming from hip hop, sampling. What is it? You know, like, isn't it een kapitalistische constructie to shut down creatives, actually, to build on the shoulders of your ancestors, you know, because in a sense, you have an original record, of my generation, let's say, sampled a piece of a record, made something new out of it, and who had a problem with it? The record labels basically shut everything down in order to make money. Supposedly to protect the original artist. But yeah, in a way, I feel like for me it worked because I found something new, something beautiful, something unique, and learned that it was from an original record from my parents' generation. So I think that the ownership conversation is layered, and we should then, if we have it, should distinct or separate what we mean exactly. Like, okay, of course, if you make a picture and your neighbor is gonna take the picture and copy it and sell it, weet je, that's a different conversation, that's stealing. Weet je? Instead of him, let's say, cutting it up and making something new out of it. Maar yeah, yeah. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. By whom? Okay. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I think you decide the rules. Yeah, but yeah, but that's the thing. Yeah, but that's the thing of hip hop, I think, which is cool, is that you decide the rules. I don't know. We exchange information here. Yeah, just get a lawyer and say all the crazy shit in your head. I now have a lawyer, and and I just say whatever, and then we have a conversation like, hey, NFT is that every time you sell a work, you get a percentage off of it. Why not with actual physical work? Let's say I want that in my contract. That if when I sell a work, I'm not doing it yet, but because I don't sell so much work. But when I sell a work, if that person wants to sell it to someone else, they have to give me a percentage. And that kind of sounds crazy, but with NFT it's not. But anyways, hey people, does anyone else have a question? Otherwise, I will talk all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I could do that. I'm going to have to remember now. So this is an interesting one, Sweetwater Clifton. So he was, I think he grew up really, he didn't have a lot of money growing up, which is why I think they called him Sweetwater. His name was actually Nathaniel Clifton. He was one of the first African-American players in the NBA, which is why I was really happy to do him.
Time.
Say that again?
When?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember. But he was one of the first. There were about three of the first. It's unbelievable that black people weren't allowed in the NBA, but they weren't at some one point. And this was basically inspired by this idea of sweet water, which I thought was just a really beautiful word. And the reason that he was called Sweetwater was because he used to drink water with sugar in it when he was growing up. And the reason that he drank water with sugar in it is because he couldn't afford fizzy drinks, which is really like, wow, tells you kind of, I guess, the level of poverty. So that's kind of the way that I've approached the work, is that each one takes something that I found interesting in the biography or the story or the way of playing of the player, and then I'll kind of expand on it. And obviously, so there's lots of, there's connotation of water in there. But those are kind of some of the ways that I'll bring out the work.
And why did you decide to use this text or this quote?
Fly like me. I like the play on words. The idea of literally flying and the idea of being fly in how you play or how you dress or how you look. So that's where that's coming from. No, I'm trying to remember. I think his style of play was really expressive, actually. I think he came from either the Harlem Globetrotters or their rival team. But his style of play was very expressive. So that's partly why I used that there. Yeah.
And do you, you have text, color, shape, image. How do you start?
So I guess these have been interesting, this series, because there has been a bit of a structure to it. So these are all based around the idea, the pattern of a basketball court. And that's kind of was the starting point for all of these. It's almost like a template, which I wouldn't normally do. But that's kind of where the structure of these began. And then I started thinking about, well, first of all, the words, obviously, and then starting to think about shapes and things like this one. You've got those waves like water, which is nice if people just notice without spelling out. But, and then the colours also referencing some of that sugary sweetness. So those are all the kind of the ways that the different elements will come together. But these all began with that template of a basketball court.
And for instance, Kevin is unstoppable.
Yeah.
But do you then think Kevin Irving is unstoppable also, or do you combine it kind of organically, the words together with the text, the name of the work?
So Kevin Durant.
Is Kevin Durant?
So that was just thinking about his style of play. When I researched into his style of play, it was like the things I was reading was he was unstoppable. So those are the kind of...
And have any of the basketball players seen the work?
Not that I know of, no.
Oh, okay.
It was the work was in Slam magazine. I don't know who knows Slam magazine, but that's like the basketball magazine. I think it was the last, what do you call it? Not edition. So it's in there, and they all read that. So maybe they will, I don't know.
Yeah. Any questions? No? Yeah.
Looking at your work, there's a real sense of responsibility coming out of them, and I was wondering, at your responsibility as an artist?
That's, yeah.
A woman artist, as a black artist, but also as an artist in general, and the responsibility artists have.
How do you? Oh yeah, I repeat for the people in the back. Heard it? Okay. Nee? Okay.
How do you look at your responsibility as an artist?
I think that's a great question. I mean, I think everyone can do what they want, right? So when I speak, I'm not saying I think artists should do this. But me personally, I do feel a responsibility as an artist because I think images are so powerful. The images that we see just can shape so much of what we do, how we live, how we think. And we're in this image-saturated culture where images they're just our whole lives are shaped by image in a way, you know. So I'm really aware of the power of images, and I see it as a responsibility to, I guess I want to shape culture in a positive way. I want to put images out there that have integrity, that are good, that are true, and by that I mean they have integrity in them, and I guess give hope. I speak about hope, and hope feels like a word that people throw around, but I think life is really tough. Life is really sad and really difficult for a lot of people, way more difficult than for me, you know. I have difficulties, but what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of people in a lot of pain, and I see the reason I started making work was as a response to life being hard. I wanted to paint positive words that lifted me, words of truth that inspired me and that lifted me, even though I might be feeling negative and feeling sad, because the reality is life is tough. So I guess I see it as my role to make images that express those things. And especially I think having kids, I'm even more aware of the power of images and wanting to make images that are good, wanting to create culture that is good, that they will feed off, you know, and that they will be nourished by, as opposed to kind of destroyed by. I don't want to make images that are destructive. Maybe critical, and actually the next series of work I'm working on right now is really quite critical about culture. There's nothing wrong with being critical. So I think those two things. Someone said, I can't remember the quote, but it's something that I can't remember the person who said it. Something that I often think about is that art should emit sparks that either warm or burn those it touches. And that's something I would like to aspire to.
Well, I think this is a great way to end the conversation. Yeah, we'll be here. Thank you, Lakwena. Thank you, audience.
Thank you.
I think this is a great way to end this talk, but feel free to approach us, Lakwena, yeah, for the coming like 10, 20 minutes, and then you're also free to see the whole museum, and or get a drink, and we'll mingle. Thank you for being here. Bye.
Can I just say one thing? I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me, Aruna, and Hiphophuis. It's really been an honor to connect with you guys, and genuinely like beautiful to see the community that you guys have built, and yeah, I'm just really grateful to be part of it. So thank you for inviting me into your world.